Well, hello and welcome to episode 491 of the Plane Talking UK podcast. Carlos here with you, and in this week's show, we've got stories on maggots, high-flying maggots. We've also got some news as well on a very posh Airbus A350 and A380. And Nev has got. He might have a rant this week about something. We'll poke the bear, see what happens. In the military news this week, we have got a very special interview indeed with Rich Flagg from UK Airfields, one of our listeners that devotes his spare time to finding and researching and documenting UK flying sites from years past. So, joining me on the show this week, as always, over in the studio, we'll give him a rest this week because he's still got that bloomin' cough. It's Matt Smith.
Yeah, and I'm absolutely fed up of it, as well as I'm sure you guys are as well. It's like every time I jump on a phone call or a video call at all with you guys, and it's like, honestly, yeah. I'm having to keep all of my radio links really short as well, just so that I don't run out of steam. Honestly. As I say, if anybody else has had this, I absolutely feel for you. I really do. Ugh, dear.
But you're here. You're there.
I
You're
am.
Pressing buttons.
I am. I'm good at that.
You're pressing buttons.
I'll keep pressing buttons. I'm good at that.
So, he's back on with us this week. He's our master of all things BA and Seat 1A. And Nev, you're shattered again this week, aren't you?
Yes, it's been a very hectic week again. Been down in Brighton at our office on the south coast with customers for the whole of yesterday and late into the evening yesterday as well. And then this morning walked up from the Hilton Hotel on the seafront to our office, and the weather is atrocious. The wind and rain off the south coast is unbelievable at the moment, and it was still raining when I dropped off my colleague at Heathrow T4 this afternoon. So yeah, it's just been non-stop, but a very busy week. No flying, I'm pleased to say, so nothing can go wrong. But we'll fix that next week because I'm going to Edinburgh and Aberdeen.
Ooh, lovely. Tuesday. Yes, fingers crossed for some decent flights, Nev.
Yes, and there's bound to be an incident, so I shall report that the following week.
Lovely. Always positive.
Yes.
So how are things with the points, Nev? Because obviously you're still flying now, plenty and stuff.
Yes,
you're sitting there in the gold tier still.
Yes, I am, and the gold what's the word? Sort of threshold finishes at in April the 8th for me. So I will just about hang on to gold for the next year. But as some of you may know, I will be retiring from my company that I'm working for in about 11 months' time. So that will not be able to stand for much longer, unfortunately. So I can probably maintain silver after that, but we'll have to see. But no, it's been good, and yeah, the gold privileges have been very useful when things have gone wrong. I must say that's been very good. But to say that there are substantial advantages over anything else, it would be difficult to say that. I have to say. But
is it a big stretch, Nev, to keep that up?
Yeah. It really is.
In a word, yes.
Yeah, you need 1,500 tier points per year in order to keep that going. And I've had to fly a few sectors on business class at my own expense, in case my company's listening, in order to get higher tier points, in order to get it over the line for this coming April. So, but it'll give me another year of gold, basically. So we'll see how we do. But yeah, looking forward to the show tonight with lots of interesting stuff. There's a lot of good stories on there this week, I've noticed. So, and I did say just before the show started, I'm particularly looking forward to the military segment. For reasons which become obvious.
I'm sorry?
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Caught me unawares there.
Oh, my word. Yep. That's one for the blooper reel, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway. So, as Nev said, we've got loads to get through this week. Got to caption this as well this week. For those of you who follow us on the social medias, we've got to caption this photo, which is quite amusing. And, yeah, we've got that interview with Richard, which is very good indeed. Actually, only got to listen to that this afternoon, so I have heard that already. Pre-listen, which is always handy for us hosts. But Matt, if you are ready,
always
can we hit that button?
Indeed.
The captain has turned on the seatbelt light. Please take your seats and fasten your seatbelts.
So, our first story comes to us this week from sky.com, and I'm sure you definitely wouldn't get this in seat 1A, and we've all heard of snakes on a plane. But how about maggots on a plane?
I hope we haven't
So
got any pictures of this. Have we got any pictures of this? I hope not.
Chaos broke out on a flight after maggots began raining down onto aircraft passengers from an overhead compartment. The absolutely gross situation saw the Delta flight forced to make a U-turn about an hour into the 9-hour trip from Amsterdam to Detroit. Passengers reported the back of the plane was left teeming with the larvae that it later emerged were emanating from a rotten fish.
Oh, lovely.
Jeez. Someone said, my family and I were in the row directly in front of the maggots, said one passenger who goes by Nisha16 on the forum Reddit. The lady right behind us told the flight attendants the maggots were falling on her head. She said she turned round and they were wriggling around on the seat. She wasn't too impressed. The passengers added that one of their carry-on bags was next to the disgusting one and that the suspected culprit was still seated and did not exit the plane until the end of the flight. She said, I assume there are some consequences, but we're unclear what, they added. Another passenger, Kelsey, described her experience on a post on X. She said she complained about the absolute odd odour on board, but that was the biggest disappointment, the lack of attention from the flight attendants. They were all sitting around in the crew area, laughing and talking when we'd been on the aircraft for close to 3 hours with not even water offered, she said. The 28-year-old passenger was put on an alternative flight but described the process as a disaster after she was stuck in Atlanta waiting to get home. Delta, described as a leader in domestic and international travel on its website, confirmed rotten fish and maggots were in the bag and apologised to the travellers. They said, we apologise to customers of Flight 113, Amsterdam to Dallas. Their trip was interrupted due to an improperly packed carry-on bag, the airline told Sky News. The aircraft returned to the gate. The passengers were placed on the next available flight and the aircraft was removed from service for cleaning. The aircraft returned to Schiphol around about 11 o'clock UK time on that day. Now, what surprised me on this is there's a picture of the flight track of this aircraft, obviously leaving Amsterdam airspace, crossing the North Sea. Then it makes a kind of a turn over Leeds and then goes back to Amsterdam. Now, wouldn't you have thought, Nev, if things were that sort of bad, they would have just thought, oh, we'll put down in Manchester or, you know.
No, I think probably because it's is it a Delta flight?
Yeah, Delta, yeah.
That's a big hub. Amsterdam's a very big hub for Delta, so it'd be better to get it back there. And actually, it's not that far if you look from where they've turned back. But I've got so many questions about this story. I mean, for starters, getting it through the X-ray machines, for example, I wonder what the ladies and gentlemen were looking at when this thing came through in the first place.
You'd think they'd spot stuff wiggling, wouldn't you?
Well, I don't know. But secondly, on US flights like this, emanating from European airports, often there are extra security checks, and even sometimes US customs or US immigration people actually in Schiphol or London, depending on where it's going from, as a sort of a secondary check and just have a look at the passengers. I would have thought that the smell of this would have been rancid, to say the least.
Astronomical is the word I'm going to use.
It just doesn't even bear thinking about, does it? I mean, God. So, yeah.
What do you reckon, Nick? Would you have been impressed with this?
Well, when I read the story, it did surprise me that nobody picked up on the smell.
Does beg a question, I suppose, Nev. Who the hell brings fresh fish on board an aircraft?
Well, just to correct you, it wasn't fresh.
It was definitely not fresh.
Been there a while.
But yeah, I mean, it's just horrific, isn't it? John Falk in the chat room says that, mind you, I have taken cooked crabs from Jersey through both Jersey and London security. However, John, cooked crabs, I think, is one thing.
Slightly different, yes.
Horrific, wasn't it? So,
Richard Adams says in the chat room, "Don't eat the fish."
yeah.
No, literally.
Very true.
Yes, although it's added protein, though, I would say. That's one of the advantages, I guess, added protein. No, just me? Okay.
All I can think about, Matt, is, and all you guys would appreciate this. I think Armando would probably not appreciate it as much as us, but a bag of scampi fries from the.
Oh,
pub,
yes, please.
When you open those up, I mean they're fairly.
Strong is the word. But then this is the 1 week where we need Andy to tell us all about it because he's got boxes of them in his pub.
Oh, he has. Yeah. Now, Nev, you've got the next story and all about these highly qualified crews.
Yeah, quite interesting. On aeronewsglobal.com, it says that highly qualified Etihad flight crew now authorised to fly both Airbus A350 and A380 interchangeably after successfully obtaining rigorous regulatory approvals and completing thorough pilot training. Etihad has achieved the qualification for its pilots to seamlessly operate both the A350 and A3 aircraft interchangeably. This milestone positions Etihad as one of the pioneering airlines globally to attain such versatility in its pilots' capabilities. Airline pilots are typically restricted to flying only one aircraft type. However, under certain conditions such as high similarity of flight deck, pilot procedures and the implementation of special training, pilots may be enabled to operate two similar aircraft types through a dedicated program approved by the aircraft manufacturer and the Civil Aviation Authority, known as mixed fleet flying. Mohammed Al-Baluki, Chief Operating Officer at Etihad Airways, said that Etihad is proud to be one of the very first airlines to qualify its pilots to both the A350 and the A380. This achievement will enhance the resilience and flexibility of the airline's network and is testament to our commitment to continuously push the boundaries of efficiency, innovation and customer satisfaction, and at all times ensuring safety is Etihad's number one priority. Over the past decade, the airline has obtained similar approvals to qualify its Airbus pilots to interchangeably fly the A320 and A330 types, A330 and A340, and its Boeing pilots to fly the 777 and 787 types, setting new standards for fleet commonality. Well, of course, we've seen this with the 75 and 767s, where pilots have common type ratings, and of course there's the Airbus family of A319, A320 and A321. No, that's a good thing, I think, when you've got sort of the ability to operate different types. But of course, in terms of weights and all the rest of it, there's a lot of difference between the two aircraft in some respects, and of course one's 4-engine and one's 2-engine, isn't it?
And probably all aircraft in which the legend that is Armando can already fly, probably. I mean, surely that must
it's just
both of those must be one of his type ratings, for goodness sake.
Yeah, must be. No, that's good to hear that. Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, they've got a mixed fleet, as he had, of, as Nev said, Boeing and Airbus aircraft. But one of the things that always strikes me with these is I love the livery. I do like the Etihad livery. It's one of my favourites out there, personally, what they've got, especially on the... it looks great on the 350s. Really, really good. Nick, you're okay? Your audio seems to be okay now. Or not, as the case may be.
No, oh well, never mind.
His audio's not fine. I better take this one.
Which one was it? Sorry,
story number 3.
Story number 3. All right, then I shall do the honours. Then,
are you sure, Matt?
Yes, it do. 2 seconds. Oh yeah, we just move everything around a little bit. Okay, Nickel fiddle with his bits and get that one all sorted. Simpleflying.com is the website, and the headline is Premium Leisure Startup Beyond, B-E-O-N-D. Just clarifying.
I know. When I saw this,
I thought somebody spelled Boeing wrong or something. Anyway, Beyond will offer Apple Vision Pro to passengers. Ooh, hello, Nev. Do I have your attention? In a bid to transform and revolutionise the in-flight experience, the startup airline Beyond will offer Apple Vision Pro headsets to its passengers on flights to the Maldives. The virtual reality VR headset will have the Airlines content and immersive experiences showcasing the best of the Maldives. According to Tero Taliska, the chairman and chief executive officer of Beyond, the Apple Vision Pro will fundamentally change the passenger experience in terms of the in-flight entertainment IFE offered to passengers on board the airline's aircraft. The airline said it will be the first to provide the VR headsets to its customers. In addition to the currently available content on its IFE system, including movies and games, the Apple Vision Pro headsets will showcase the stunning sights of the Maldives, alluring passengers to try out resort destinations or activities in the country. We are working now with partners in the Maldives to prepare truly amazing footage. The in-flight experience will build anticipation for passengers before they arrive in the Maldives. Tuscular concluded that the offering of the Apple Vision Pro is another step in Beyond's goal to deliver a premium travel experience to its customers, with the carrier being the first to offer the VR headsets to its passengers who travel to the Maldives. I don't know how many more times I could say the word Maldives. The airline,
it's a lovely place.
Well, I'm sure. I'll take your word for that. The airline, which began operations in October 2023 and operated its first flight the following month, focuses on providing a luxurious experience on flights to from Mal Velana International Airport in the Maldives. Currently, Beyond offers direct flights from VIA to Dubai. Oh, nice. Okay, and several other airports in the area as well, including Munich and also Zurich, all via Dubai by the look of things, from what I can see there. It looks like Malpensa Airport will join the airline's network in March 2024. Beyond began services with a single Airbus A319 CEO configured in an all-business class configuration, seating 44 passengers. The aircraft, registered as 8 Quebec Foxtrot Bravo Alpha, was originally delivered to EasyJet in 2004. Subsequently, Chile's Sky Airline took over the aircraft in 2012 before Germany-based charter airline Sundair took over the ownership of the BizJet between 2019 and 2021. I won't read much more of the story, but we get the gist there. I don't know.
So what are these?
So they're essentially they're like VR headsets. So I think Meta did one, didn't they? Facebook did like the Opus or whatever it was that you could put over your face and stuff. I mean, I guess in some respects, I mean, it saves the requirement for like screens and stuff in the headset. In the headsets and stuff, I suppose easier to charge, I guess, because you can charge it all up from a USB port. I guess though, Nev, the old Wi-Fi infrastructure will need to be quite
robust.
Yes, quite strong and powerful in order to be able to deliver the data flows that are required. I mean, I guess it will be on board servers rather than sort of through the air.
Well, yeah, and I don't want to be accused of being negative at all here, but I can see a couple of immediate problems, and they've already been mentioned in the chat room, the possibility of some air sickness going on as well with this, because I think if you can't see, if you haven't got your peripheral vision going on properly, and there's a bit of turbulence going on in the flight, or even if there isn't, I think that could be a bit odd for a lot of people. But also, when the cabin crew are coming through the aircraft asking if you would like a drink or some food, and you've got your Vision Pro headset on, well, you're not going to see them, are they? No. They're going to have to tap you on the shoulder and you'll sort of jump up with a start, probably. I mean, I
suppose it's one way of making sure that they've watched the safety video thoroughly, because we'll all be so nerding out by this amazing device that's attached to our face, essentially.
Oh dear, I don't know.
Also, it's like you're flying to the Maldives. Why do you need to wear a VR headset to experience the Maldives if you're going to the Maldives?
You said that a lot there, man.
Yeah.
That's a reasonable point, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah, well, why not do it in full-on proper 3D? It's got smell-o-vision and everything.
or look out of the window.
In the Maldives, as fans, so it is a stunning place. Me and Gemma went there for our honeymoon. And
I'm sure.
Amazing place to go.
Yeah.
But so I will say one thing. I do like this Beyond paint scheme they have on their aircraft.
Really?
Yes. It's quite funky, isn't it? Yeah.
Is it? Hang on
Yeah.
a minute. Have we got some pictures? I'm just having a look. Where are we? No, I haven't.
It
Yes,
looks-
I
it
have.
looks-
Yes, I have.
It looks quite corporate, I think, Nev. Is that the word? Corporate?
That's
Kind of?
one word for it.
Reminds me a little bit of the Formula One management jet colour.
Yeah.
But yes, no, it's very nice. Very nice indeed. But yeah, the VR headset thing, the Apple Vision Pro, I don't know.
I mean, I'd like an Apple Vision Pro to give it a go, but I wouldn't
Yes.
necessarily want to be on a plane trying it out, if you see what I mean.
No. Yeah. And also, if there is some sort of in-flight, well, I don't know how it would work. I mean, if there's an in-flight issue where the captain or the cabin crew have to do a PA, for example, and you're immersed in this world, you'll have tuned out from anything else that's on the flight.
But I mean, surely it would cut in and out like it does when they do,
Well,
like when you're watching an onboard film and that, doesn't it? It sort of interrupts the audio of what you're watching.
Yeah.
And then it's sort
But
of
it could come as a bit of a shock, couldn't it? Because these things are so immersive. And I used to work for a company that did this 3D stuff, back in the late 2000s it was, and you really do tune out from everything else. So if there's a PA announcement or some kind of instruction from the flight deck, you're going to jump out of your seat if you're immersed yourself in something that it's showing. I would have thought, but. Yeah, well, it's technology and it's progress, isn't it? Let's be honest.
That's one word for it, yes. I don't know if I agree with you, Nev, but yes, it is technology. We'll leave it at that.
Where we go to next with in-flight entertainment, where can you go next? Unless you have a flying disco or nightclub, I suppose. An idea.
Sorry to interrupt. We interrupt our usual programming to give you an update on the weather situation here. We've got more wind coming, Carlos. A yellow weather warning has just been issued
brilliant.
for our
Lovely.
part of the world. That's good,
what I
isn't
like
it?
to
Yay!
Yes. Oh, well, that'll be a sitting in front of the TV weekend for me. Anyway, a question that we ask ourselves, I think. Neb may have asked himself this once or twice on his many flights, and this comes from paddleyourown.canoe.com. And is it acceptable to go for a walk around the aircraft during a long-haul flight?
I'm going to say yes, because I've done it
ask you in a
several
minute.
times.
I'll ask you in a minute.
Oh, right. Okay.
Matt, you can walk around wherever you like. You can go wherever you like.
No, thank you.
An interesting question recently arose on the popular frequent flyer talk forum at Flyer Talk, which someone asked if it was acceptable to walk up and down the aisle in order to stretch your legs and gets some steps in. The passenger asked the question because they were flying in British Airways Club World. And when they went to walk to the back of the aircraft, they discovered that there was a rope separating business class. A rope, Nev? Of course, the rope is there to start.
Electric fence, I think, if Nev had his way.
Of course, the rope is there to stop economy
Cattle prods.
passengers. Neville balance. Then rope, Nev, is there to stop economy class passengers from entering the premium cabin. But might be okay for someone to take the rope down, or is it okay for someone to take the rope down to go for a walk? An interesting question this may be. The first instinct as a flight attendant who is very aware of the danger of unexpected turbulence is that passengers should remain seated and strapped into their seats as much as possible. So going for strolls around the cabin isn't strongly advised. But when this particular editor looked into this a little more, this isn't actually the official answer that many airlines advise their passengers. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Knowing that Qantas has for many years gone to great lengths to educate passengers about the risks of deep vein thrombosis, or the clot that can develop in the lower leg or thigh pelvis when sitting down for long periods of time, Qantas has lots of exercise suggestions that passengers can perform in their seats to reduce the risk of DVT. But interestingly, Qantas also encourages its passengers to get up out of their seats and occasionally go for a walk down the aisles. The caveat to that advice is, of course, that passengers should only go for a stroll, and they quote, when the seatbelt sign is off and when it's safe to do so. You can't really, when a turbulence is going to hit, do you? That's why we have the seatbelts on when we're sitting down. Back to British Airways, which was the airline that the person who posed the question on Fly Talk was flying. BA has remarkably similar advice to their passengers, Nev, suggesting that passengers take a walk around the cabin regularly to reduce the risk of DVT. Other suggestions include simply standing in your seat, okay, and stretching your arms and legs and avoiding crossing your arms and legs when sitting down. This is particularly important to passengers, particularly those with a wide set of risk groups that includes everyone aged over 40. Oh, thanks. Pregnant passengers, people who have cancer or blood clotting issues, and those who have previously suffered from DVT. In addition, Qantas says smokers and obese passengers should also make an effort to walk around a cabin, as well as anyone who is dehydrated or has suffered a heart failure or has varicose veins. Oh my, well, honestly, this is getting... Let's never fly again. Aside from limiting strolls to when the seatbelt signs are switched off, there are also some other simple etiquette hints that would suggest ideally limited walks from time to time outside of the food and beverage service when you might block the aisles, and try not to stare at other passengers. That's something I do very often. During flights, take lots of care when walking in the aisles. Arms and legs are no doubt sticking out in front of the aisle. There could also be trash or rubbish on the floor, which might be a slip hazard. Also, most flight attendants don't have any issues with you coming into the galley, although try not to drag these visits out for too long. If there are too many people standing in the galley or by the doors, you'll be instructed to return to your seat because there aren't enough oxygen masks in the event of decompression. Nev, you're on a long flight. You're in your seat 1A with BA. You know, do you get up very often and have a wander around, or
occasionally I might go and chat to the crew in the galley if they're not busy and things like that, but I don't do what I saw on it was quite a long time ago. Obviously it was a BA DC-10 from London Gatwick to Dallas Fort Worth. There were at least 2 people that I observed that were doing power walking throughout the cabin.
What?
Not just a stroll, but vigorous walking. I mean, let alone what it did to the trim of the aircraft, but nonetheless, it was just ridiculous. And actually, the cabin crew said, "Can you not do that, sir?" "Yes, I'm just, I've got DVT problems, and yeah, get all that. So you just get up and do some slower walking, perhaps, or some stretching. But this is not, Crystal Palace athletic circuit or something like that. So that was a bit odd. But no, I've got no objection to people doing that because I think it's reasonable if you're on a long haul flight to do that. But yeah, just take a bit of care. Obviously, that kind of goes without saying, doesn't it? Really.
I think this is easier if you're on a long haul flight because you've got 2 twin aisles on, obviously.
Well, this is, and we come back to my point of single aisle operations across the North Atlantic. So one of these days, when I can afford it, I'm going to take one of these flights and see what it's like, because I'm getting a lot of criticism from people that I don't think it's a great idea personally. But if you're on a single aisle flight for 7 or 8 hours, I think that's quite challenging as far as the crew service is concerned and that kind of thing. But again, stretching and walking around, what it's like on a short haul flight if you're just trying to get from one part of the cabin to the other. To use the bathroom, perhaps. No, I mean, I'm all in favour of people having a stretch, but no, don't do the power walking. Leave that to the park run or something like that.
Or if you're in Emirates flying in, is it first class, you can obviously get up and have a shower, Nev.
Oh, that's true. Yes, good idea.
Yeah, but you see, my idea of going for a power walk is to go, if you are on an Emirates flight and you're on an A380, it's the power walk to the bar. That's
the bar.
That's all I'm interested in.
I did think about that earlier, actually, Matt. You must have read my mind. Yeah. I had visions of sitting at the bar and in the 380. Yeah, that's not a bad call. Plus, it's quite a big area as well. I got the chance to have a look round a few years back now. We flew with Emirates on the 380, and it's quite a nice area, the bar area on there. It's the seats are comfy, and it is a nice area to go and sit down and kind of chat and stuff. So
I must say, one of our mutual friends sent me a photo of them working behind the bar on there, and that was quite That was quite an awesome. I thought, yeah, I'd have loved to work that bar because it's quite a small bar, so it is only one person who works behind there, and it's like my space.
Yeah, Richard Adams in the chat room says that he's surprised that Emirates don't have a gym in first class.
Not a facility I would be using.
No, absolutely not.
I may walk past it to have a look at what other people are doing, but
yeah, absolutely. I think it's like So my idea of exercise on a flight is the lifting of the drinking receptacle with your chosen beverage. Indeed.
But no, it makes you think, doesn't it, what we are going to see in the future when it comes to long haul flights and how you can be entertained. Obviously we've got bars, we've got showers. Where's it going to go?
I'm just waiting to see when people are going to start walking around the aisle with their VR headset on.
Yes,
and bumping into people and being a nuisance. That'll be the next thing, won't it?
Now, Nev, you've got the next story, and it's covering an airline or a startup airline we were chatting about not too long ago, weren't we?
Yeah, I've been following this with some keenness, I have to say, just to see what happens. It's on aerotime.aero, and it says that British startup Global Airlines completes its first A380 test flight in the US. Well, they've successfully completed this with the A380-841 aircraft. The aircraft, which is registered 9 Hotel Golf Lima Oscar Bravo Lima, took off from Mojave Air and Spaceport in the Californian desert on the February the 15th, just gone, just before 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. According to Flight Radar 24, the flight lasted 21 minutes as the A380 circled twice close to the airport in the Mojave Desert before coming back down to land at 9:17 a.m. Later in the day, the Global Airlines A380 took to the skies once more for its second test flight, taking off at just after 2:45 p.m. The aircraft, which is operated by High Fly Malta, performed a single lap of the area and landed back at Mojave at 3:06 p.m. The two test flights represent a significant milestone for the carrier and its CEO and founder James Asquith. Following the test flights, Asquith wrote on Instagram, "I'm a bit lost for words right now and all sorts of emotions. Global Airlines and our first A380 flight, the #1 tracked flight worldwide by quite some distance on Flight Radar 24. Thank you to the many people supporting us." He added, "There's so much work that has gone on to get to this point, but there's more to do. So for now, it's head down and more work. But for the whole team and the hundreds of people that have worked tirelessly to get to this point, thank you," he says. Well, Global Airlines was launched in 2021 with ambitions to build a carrier that would fly an A380 on transatlantic flights from London to New York and Los Angeles. But over the last few years, the airline has steadily built the infrastructure in terms of aircraft and staffing to position itself as a credible startup carrier, despite many observers reckoning that it would not be possible. Global Airlines took full ownership of the aircraft, which was previously owned by China Southern, on February the 2nd, deregistering it in the United States and re-registering it in Malta. Prior to the test flights, the aircraft last flew on December the 22nd, 2022, and for the last 13 months, it's been based at Mojave, where it's been serviced by expert teams. Global Airlines previously acquired an A380 registered Bravo 6140 from Doric, which is a German-based investment firm, in May 2023. But this aircraft is the first fully owned plane to fly for the carrier. Global Airlines had entered agreements to purchase 4 A380 aircraft and plans to begin operations in the second half of this year. So I do notice that I'm connected with with James Asquith on the old LinkedIn. So I'm going to drop him a note and see if he fancies coming on the show to do an interview, which would be quite nice, wouldn't it? Let's see.
It would. Love to hear more about this.
So fascinating. We'll see what happens.
I do like a nice livery, because sometimes some airlines can have some pretty boring liveries out there. Air France being one of them.
I say the scandal.
Sorry. I do love the livery on here. On their website, I don't know if you've seen the Global Airlines website, it does show, obviously, the 380 there on like a what they call them. It's a video of the aircraft with the colours and stuff. It does look really stunning with the tail and stuff. But be interesting to see if this works, Nev, and also pricing.
Yes. I think we need to see what the commercials are going to be as well. So, but no, it would be interesting to go for a ride on this aircraft, wouldn't it? That's for sure. So,
Indeed.
We'll see.
Yeah, I wonder how much of the interior they kept the same. Obviously, with the the seating and the business class kind of arrangement.
Interesting.
Yeah, we've not got a lot of information about any of that at all, really, have we, at the moment? So,
Need to get him on. We need to get him on. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
No, I don't think Nick is back. Nick is with us, but he's not. I think his audio is still playing up this evening. But next story. Shall I take this one?
No, I can do it. That's all right.
Nick, you all right, Matt?
No,
yeah,
I'll manage.
he's still there. He's still with us, Matt.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, the next story, aviation24.be is the website source. Now, Nick, who put the show notes together this week, saying many questions with this one, and we'll get into that, I think, in a moment. So Marathon Airlines operating for Air Serbia Embraer 195LR hits runway lights during takeoff at Belgrade Airport in the evening of 18th of February. That's a very unusual way of writing things. So basically on the 18th of February, a Marathon Airlines operating for Air Serbia Embraer 195LR, is that long range? Is that what LR stands for?
Yes.
There's hope for me yet. Was operating flight Juliet Union Uniform, sorry, nearly 324 between Belgrade, Serbia and Dusseldorf in Germany. During takeoff at Belgrade Airport, however, the aircraft overran the runway at the runway 30 and subsequently hit the runway lights. Data retrieved from Flight Radar 24 revealed that the aircraft took off from an intermediate taxiway, leaving only reduced length for takeoff. What? The pilot decided to stop the climb, to burn off some fuel and return back to the airport of Belgrade, presumably to leave their licence details for the claim that was no doubt forthcoming. On first approach, the Embraer climbed again to attempt a second and successful landing about 1 hour after initial takeoff. Nobody got injured during the mishap, but the aircraft sustained substantial damage, as seen on the pictures that appeared on social media.
My thoughts are the amount of noise that must have been the passengers seated just above where the wing route is. I don't know whether you got the pictures or not.
I'm giving that a go now. Chat amongst yourselves, will you?
I mean,
I've got a little video.
We'll look at it. Yeah, we've got a video we'll play as well for those of you who may not have seen the video. It was,
indeed. There's no audio on it, so you may need to just sort of describe it. I think the best way to describe it is a little bit of a puff of smoke, isn't there? There we go.
I said before we went live, it just looks like someone's nicked a plane and has kind of gone on a joyride.
I was watching Juan Brown's channel, the Blanco Liro channel, earlier today, and he did a very good review of what he was seeing here. And basically, the crew took off from taxiway Delta 5, which is halfway down the runway.
What?
Now, I'm sure these aircraft are very good. We've got very good performance, but I think even that's a bit of a stretch somehow. And they literally ploughed off the end of the runway and taking a lot of the runway lighting and localizer and antenna with them. But the damage that it's done to the aircraft is extremely substantial. And the other thing he pointed out, again, which is what I don't understand, is why the crew held for nearly an hour to burn off some fuel. Having just had a big moment like that, I think I'd want it back on the deck a bit sharpish, and we'll fill out the paperwork later on for the overweight landing. Just a horrific situation there, and clearly, I don't know whether it was a massive miscalculation with the takeoff runway length that was required when they were doing all the stats before they departed, or what. But that was never going to work, was it? Even with the most lightest laden aircraft.
I mean, the damage here, though, Nev, is frankly. I mean, I'm amazed there wasn't a catastrophic ending to this. I know they're pretty robust, but I mean, you just got to look like essentially where the wing and the engine sort of attach to the the fuselage there are large gaping holes in there. And I guess most of that outer skin is just sort of like covering, I guess, rather than...
I think is it carbon fibre on these now?
Is it?
I'm not sure.
No.
But there's pictures when it landed of a lot of leaking something coming out of there, whether it's fuel or hydraulic fluid or whatever it was. But
this could have so easy, as you say, and they're in the hold for now. Look, I mean, even like on the tail, not the
horizontal stabiliser. That's a big ding out of that as well. Ding out of that.
I mean, I'm amazed it flew as well as it did, frankly.
Well, if you look at Juan's channel, and you'll see how far off, because it's got all the ADS-B data as well, how far off the end of the runway it was still going before it starts to climb and got a positive rate of climb. So it wasn't even close. It wasn't though it just went over the runway threshold and clipped something. This was ploughing through a lot of metal, and I think there's going to be some serious questions asked about,
most of which is still
the crew
wedged in the wing.
and the figures that they departed with.
I mean, how long do you... I mean, again, this is not a question perhaps we can answer, but I mean, presumably the airport had to be closed for a significant time while they put all these runway lights back.
Well, they said that they downgraded it from Cat 3 operations to Cat 1 operations.
Wow,
there's just so much...
There's no lights.
So much damage there. It was...
They were all on their way to Serbia, essentially.
Yeah, now, interestingly enough, I also saw a video this week on YouTube with a business jet about to depart from Madeira, Funchal, which is always a bit interesting with landing in there because of the high winds and the high terrain. And actually they requested a intersection departure. It was only a small biz jet, so there's plenty of runway available, but the airport wouldn't allow it. They just said, no, you've got to go to the starting end of the runway, almost at the threshold of the runway, before you commence your takeoff run. So it's actually an airport operation thing, not a pilot thing. So they had to do literally a 180 on the runway and go back to the threshold of the takeoff runway. Now, I also think that, I don't know what ATC thought about this when they saw that, this aircraft, and they know where it's going to, so you can estimate what the load might have been. Obviously, you don't know what the fuel loads are and all the rest of it. But seeing it depart from Delta 5 halfway up the runway must have been a bit concerning for ATC even watching this, I would have thought. But there it is,
I just think we're genuinely lucky that something more catastrophic did not occur here.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's astounding, frankly.
I was going to say, this aircraft's going to be out of service for quite some time, but then Captain Cruz in the chat room says, given the age of the aircraft, it's probably going to be a write-off.
Oh, really?
Yes, and also he says that the tower apparently questioned the Marathon Airlines about whether they are sure. In other words, are they sure they want to depart from Delta 5? But yeah, that was a very, very lucky moment, and it's just down to luck. That's all it was.
Yeah.
If there'd been anything else that had gone on there, I mean, there could have been substantial. In-flight fuel leak, hydraulic lines being severed, brakes in op. I mean, all sorts of things could have gone on there. Just doesn't bear thinking about, does it?
No, it really doesn't. It really doesn't.
So our next story comes to us from SimpleFlying.com. Something else you wouldn't want to have happen while you're in an airliner or aircraft. And this story is Wings Air ATR 72 damaged after being shot while on approach to the runway in Indonesia.
Beg your pardon?
No. God, if it isn't bad enough hitting lights, you're being shot at. In the depths of Papua region of Indonesia, a Wings Air Avions de Transport Regional flight was operating from Jaipur to Deccan when, on approach, the ATR 72 was shot at as it descended onto the runway 07. No injuries were reported from the 36 passengers on the flight, and according to data from FlightRadar24.com, the aircraft remains on the apron at Nopgalth Dikai Airport, located in the Yakimo Regency of Highland, Papua. The airport is one of 7 airports that connects over 517 villages in the region. While the airport can manage up to 300 passengers per hour, most services are destined for Jaipur's Dorothy's Hoyo Eloe International Airport, or DJJ, the largest airport in Papua. and the most eastern in Indonesia. Photos from the incident shared on X identify the bullet holes, penetration of the fuselage and where it entered the aircraft just onto seat 19A. The aircraft was able to land safely after the incident. Now, Matt, I don't know whether you've got the pictures there of this, but yeah, not the sort of thing you want to be seeing when you're sitting in seat 19A. Not that obviously Nev would see
Not
this.
the place I would be, obviously.
No, quite. I mean, it's interesting because the damage from the outside just looks like a sort of like a basically a small hole, but inside it's it's quite the event inside. It's looking at the picture here, so it's conveniently gone between two windows, and it's taken the I don't know, it's not plaster, is it? But whatever the equivalent,
plastic coating,
the plastic coating that's on the fiberglassy type sort of like innards. I mean, it's quite the damage. I mean, potentially somebody could have been in the way of that, I guess.
Yeah. And I think this is we've seen stories like this in the past on the show in countries, out of the way like this. These events do sometimes happen, and you never know. It might have been someone out hunting. You never know.
I mean, sure, why not?
But then you shouldn't be flying drones or shooting guns near an airport, as we all know. No. So, moving on to the next one. Nev, you've got some good news, possibly good news, for residents of the UK.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's about time we had some runway additions, isn't it? And this is from the express.co.uk. It's all about Manston Airport. Of course, that was shut down in 2014. I can't believe it was that long ago, after some reporting huge losses. Well, this abandoned airport in a county bordering London, it says, which is Kent, obviously, has potential to reopen soon, as it plans to offer cheap flights to some of the popular destinations in Europe. Manston Airport, which is in Thanet in Kent, was shut down in 2014. River Oak Strategic Partners, who's a developer, has since purchased the small airport for £16 million, with up to £500 million set to be injected into its redevelopment. Well, these plans, if they come to fruition, have the potential to generate thousands of jobs, both directly and indirectly, with the airport projected to reopen as soon as 2025. I would have thought that would be a bit optimistic, I have to say. Although initially set to function as a cargo airport, if services are profitable, then it could lead to passenger flights by 2028, with wider plans unfolding over a 15-year period. These include up to 4 passenger stands and 19 freight stands at its peak, but not everyone is in favour of it, with the local community citing increased noise and climate harm amongst their issues against it. Well, there's been a lot of talk about possible destinations, with Spain, Cyprus and Malta being mentioned as options. However, the final decision will depend on the airlines, and at present it's believed that the conversations are going on between Ryanair and EasyJet, reported My London. However, many people in the area are strongly against the plans to improve the airport, and they're concerned about things like climate change, damage to historical sites, noise, how the airport will work and how it will affect local roads. Earlier this month, a judicial review brought by a local campaigner of the UK government's decision to grant a development consent order was dismissed, which Kent Live reported. But the campaigner is pushing back against the dismissal of the latest legal challenge to the plans. RSP said of the recent judicial review dismissal, said, "We have just been notified that the application for a judicial review of the government's decision to grant the DCO has been dismissed. We now look forward to getting the process of turning Manston into a state-of-the-art air freight hub underway and working to support the long-term economic development of East Kent through the reopening of Manston that was set out in the application." Well, I mean, firstly, I mean, this airport was perfectly serviceable back at the time. I know there was big financial problems, but this is a 10,000 feet runway, so it's the same as Gatwick Airport, basically. And Virgin used to use it for training, and I think BA did back in the day as well, and as well as a number of operators that came out of there. And in fact, there was a couple of operators that did long-haul business class only flights to the US. And of course, this was originally RAF Manston, and the airfield on the site goes to date back as early as the 1930s. And many of the former World War II bomber-based bases discussed in last week's show. It was a very strategic location for the European Air War, of course. It was returned to the airfield was used by the US Air Force during the 1950s, but was returned to RAF use in 1960. I mean, I hope it does reopen, but it's, my word, there's an awful lot of work to get it to an operational stage, I would have thought.
Yeah, it's got a longer runway than Norwich, our local airport here.
Yeah.
Which, Norwich is just over 6,000 feet. As Nev said,
excuse me, London, Norwich, I'll have you know. Sorry, how rude.
Yeah, Manston is just over 9,000 feet. And actually, Stansted Airport, our sort of local, mostly used airport, is only 10,000 feet, Nev. So it's only just a little bit bigger than Manston. So, I mean, Manston would work if they can, build on it. What's already there. Like you said, it's going to cost a fortune, I think, to put right. But
yes,
but it's quite a slog for you, though.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we'll keep an eye on this one because I think if it is going to happen, then that will be an interesting story. And see what sort of operation they end up with out of there.
Matt, do you want the next one, or you?
Yeah, no, can do.
This is I found this one this week and dropped this in to Nick when he popped this in the show notes. So I thought this is quite interesting, actually, for someone I've seen it once.
Okay, all right. Well, let's find out more about it. It's the "and finally" story for the commercial section this week. Travel and Tour World is the website, travelandtourworld.com, and the headline: Delta Airlines are taking you to watch a total solar eclipse. Ooh, I like the sound of that. For those eager to witness a total solar eclipse from an aerial perspective, Delta is set to provide a unforgettable experience this April in a unique offering. The airline has scheduled a special journey from Austin to Detroit on the 8th of April 2024, designed with eclipse enthusiasts in mind. This flight aims to maximise the duration spent in the eclipse's path of totality. Scheduled as Delta Flight 1218, this exclusive trip will be aboard an A220-300 aircraft chosen for its oversized windows to enhance the eclipse viewing experience. Departing from Austin at 12:15 p.m. CT and arriving at Detroit at 4:20 p.m. ET, the timing is meticulously planned to optimise viewing of the eclipse at its most spectacular moment. Oh my goodness me, I hope they didn't pick up a delay. That would almost be hilarious. Eric Beck, Managing Director of Domestic Network Planning, highlighted the collaborative effort behind this flight, stating the dedication and teamwork at Delta have made it possible to curate an experience that brings the awe of viewing a total solar eclipse from the skies to our passengers. The attention to detail from the aircraft selection to the precise timing and onboard gate experiences showcases our commitment to creating memorable moments. Beyond this unique flight, Delta is offering prime eclipse viewing on 5 additional flights on April the 8th, reminding passengers to bring their eclipse glasses. So DL 5699 from Detroit to White Plains at 2:59 p.m. EST on an ERJ 175. Delta 924 from Los Angeles to Dallas Fort Worth at 8:40 a.m. PST on an A320. And there are several other flights there: Salt Lake City to San Antonio, Los Angeles to San Antonio. Lots of flights there to choose from. Delta also offers flights to several destinations within the eclipse's path of totality for those preferring to observe from the ground, including Austin, San Antonio and Little Rock. Warren Weston, Delta Airlines lead meteorologist, wow, there's a title, emphasised the significance of the April 8th eclipse, noting this is the last total solar eclipse visible over North America until 2044, offering a duration and path width significantly greater than the 2017 eclipse, making it a truly extraordinary event.
I bet there'll be some people paying the extra money for the window seats on these flights.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Or for the VR headset, perhaps. Or have I missed the point again?
I think you may have done slightly. I mean,
It's a good idea. It's a really good idea, I think, for someone who's not potentially witnessed an eclipse before. But it would be definitely interesting to witness it from, 36,000 feet or wherever. Never. What was the last one? Can you remember the last one you saw?
Oh,
or didn't see?
It was in Cornwall, wasn't it? I went down to Cornwall to see that. Gosh, that's 1990 something, wasn't it? I seem to remember.
I suppose the best thing about this as well, of course, is it almost won't matter what the weather's like, because essentially you'll be above the clouds anyway, won't you?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
True.
It's probably the only real way of guaranteeing a fabulous solar eclipse experience.
Well, Captain Cruise wasn't impressed with the 2017 eclipse, apparently.
Oh, okay. Duly noted.
One of the most anticlimax experiences I've ever had. High expectations, but that was that. No.
Well, there you go. Sounds like advice for life in general. That does. David Cummings says the last one killed his hamster.
Oh.
I'm intrigued to know how that works. Actually, maybe I'm not.
Okay.
I've changed my mind. I don't want to know.
I would ask Nick what he thinks, but obviously he's got no audio, so
Fair enough.
Smiling.
Yeah.
Bless him, poor Nick.
Yeah.
We'll send the tech guys round, Nick. Don't worry, they'll sort your issues out. Moving on to the next part of the show, and for those of you who might tune in the chat room and see a certain Richard Flagg in the chat room, and he does a very interesting thing in our area here. We are lucky in the area that me and Matt live here in the UK to have many, many really great airfields and museums right on our doorstep, and Armando got the chance to catch up with Richard this week and have a good old chat about exactly what Richard does.
You're a listener of the show. We've all been seeing you in the chat room, and I think your YouTube handle kind of perks everybody's interests, and we're all wondering what it is that you do, and how did you end up with that YouTube handle?
Well, it's a long story. If you indulge me for a minute, I started. I grew up in Sussex, in the southeast of England, and in about 2000, year 2000, my parents moved up to a little village on the Norfolk-Suffolk border, just outside the market town of Diss, and I spent probably 5 years then. Well, I was still working with the Airlines at the time, and I spent 5 or 6 years then just continually travelling up and down in my spare time, and I just got to notice a lot of old airfields, derelict control towers, memorials on the side of the road, and it just sparked an interest which has turned into an obsession. I think the first time I visited my local, where I live now, near Thorpe Abbots, the first time I visited there was 20 years ago this year, and it literally sort of sparked an interest that has overtaken everything I do in my life, aside from my family and my job.
What is it that you do? Because I know we're kind of speaking offline. For me, especially, this all kind of spurred from the last show when we were talking about Masters of the Air. For me, it was really, really special to be living over there. And I won't lie, I was that guy that was driving to or riding my motorcycle to private fence lines or cattle gates so I could get a peek at an old piece of pavement or asphalt. But what is it that you do with these airfields? What is your goal?
I think
and how do you find them?
Ultimately, I think the goal is I would love to visit every known World War II airfield in the UK. And I've made a pretty good dent at that. I think I'm probably about 3/4 of the way of doing that. Obviously, a lot of the airfields in Scotland and Northern Ireland I haven't yet visited. But it all started, like I say, 20 years ago when I started visiting Thorpe Abbots and places like that. And obviously, Thorpe Abbots is very well known with the Masters of the Air link now. Just walking out onto that derelict piece of tarmac. If you know Thorpe Abbotts, if you've been there, you've got that lovely country lane going up across the airfield, and all of a sudden you've got that gate there and this stretch of tarmac, which was once the old taxiway that leads down to the control tower, and just stood there looking out and just imagining what went on there some sort of 80 years ago now. It had an atmosphere that I guess I kind of caught the bug just literally there, and it's once that bug gets into your system, you don't let it go. And these places I find are absolutely incredibly powerful to stand on and look at and just imagine. Close your eyes and listen to the skylarks and imagine what it was like and what activity was going on there 80 years ago. And it kind of went from there, really. And then I started finding all the little memorials. And all of a sudden I was, before I knew it, I was literally typing up lists of airfields and memorials and finding them. And then obviously with the internet getting bigger and bigger and a lot more information becoming more accessible, it was, okay, where do I find this? How do I get that? And I got chatting to a couple of good friends of mine who live up in Sheffield. And I still keep in touch with them both today, although our lives have moved very, very separate ways. And we sort of said to each other, how do we find out more about airfields? And we ended up online setting up a forum, like a chat room forum, and it was called Airfield Information Exchange. And then we got that established and going for a good few months and turned into a lot of years. And then we got approached by a charity called Airfield Research Group, who were really, really keen on what we were doing. And they're one of the sort of very old school. At that point, they weren't a charity. Sorry, I should say. At that point, they weren't a charity, but they were one of these very old school clubs that everything was done by newsletter. A lot of their membership were, in retirement, and they didn't really know how to sort of continue what they did. So we got involved with the forum, set that up, and literally just sort of started looking at places, using a lot of their information. Then we ended up with an archive facility, which is still there today. I helped set up the charity with them. I was one of the directors, and then I met my Gemma, who's now my wife, probably about 11 years ago now. I was at that point, I was in the process of joining the RAF as a reservist alongside my full-time job, and continued doing literally everything I could in every hour of the day until I sort of said, right, I can't do any more. So I had to step back from a few things. I did my 5 years in the RAF. I stepped back from the Airfield Research Group, having set it up as a charity. Still very involved as a very active member. My own work sort of kind of continued, and I set up my website probably 10, 12 years ago, and literally started publishing all of my photographs and content on there. Then the social media came along and literally started putting it on there, and the following grew and grew and grew, and I couldn't believe how much interest there was in what I was doing. And like I say, it's just sort of kind of really, really spiraled, especially over the last few years.
Who have you found as your target audience, or the people that have reached out to you, and is there anyone that has specifically affected you that had a unique connection or something like that kind of validated your efforts?
It's that's quite a hard question to answer, but I think when you're sort of out looking at these airfields, you go to a lot of, the East Anglian landscape, it's littered with airfields, and I'd say probably every other one of those airfields has got a museum. And you start going out, you're looking at the airfields, you go to the museums, and you start building friendships with some of the guys at the museums. And I've got some great connections and great friends at Thorpe Abbotts at the 100th Bomb Group Museum, the 95th at Horham, the 93rd at Hardwick, and quite a lot of the other museums. The City of Norwich Aviation Museum is another one. They're all good people. They're all trying to tell the story in their own way, and everyone that's involved with this, has to be 100% commended in what they do, because it's a selfless task. You don't get paid for it. You just do it for the love of what you do, and you meet so many interesting people. I've met quite a number of veterans, 100th, 95th, 490th, which were at I. That's another interesting story I can tell you if you like as well. When we set up a committee in about 2013 to put a memorial at I Airfield, 2-year project. There was a small committee of us. There was about 8 of us, raised about £20,000, and we put a memorial up to the 490th. And that was one of probably about half a dozen memorials that I've been involved with. That's the one I've probably been most involved with, because I led the project as chairman. But I've done a lot of other memorials where I've been advising people on sort of certain airfields, designs of memorial, all that sort of thing as well. So you meet all sorts of people. And every single person you talk to and spend a bit of time chatting to, it doesn't matter whether they've served there or whether they're sort of in their teenage years and are sort of just got a passing interest. Everyone finds these places fascinating for their own reasons, and everyone's got a different story to tell about it. And I just love listening to people and what they think of these places. And I get a lot of great feedback from my website. A lot of, I don't know if you follow me on Facebook, you probably see some of the comments that are on there. There's some fascinating comments, some fantastic things that people say. And, I just love that feedback, and I love the ability that I can just put something up there and I know people are enjoying it. It's not out of trying to get something out of myself or trying to get one up on someone else. It's something I've enjoyed. I've enjoyed doing it for years, and putting it online for other people to enjoy. And like I say, the comments you get, and my grandfather served there, my uncle served there, my dad served there. You get a little bit of information on that. It's nice to touch people in a way that doesn't always happen anywhere else. But that's aviation, I guess. You can, it's a small world. It really is.
It is amazing how small the aviation community is. Once you start digging into, you find these amazing connections. I think that's why I still love it. I want to know, though, what has been your most challenging airfield to either find, research, or access?
I guess any of the active ones.
Right. Okay. That makes perfect sense.
Not in terms of finding them, because I think everyone knows where all the active ones are. But I think in terms of sort of accessing and building the right relationships, I had a lot of good connections, and I'll highlight one person in particular, Paul Francis. He's the current chairman of Airfield Research Group, and he was one of the guys that was very instrumental in getting us involved with Airfield Research Group in sort of 2008, 2009. And he's remained a very, very good friend of mine. And his connections are unreal. He does what I do as a full-time job. And he does a lot of reports for various heritage organisations, Ministry of Defence, and so on and so forth. And I built up some great connections with Paul through English Heritage and a lot of the other heritage bodies around the UK. Some of the people we've met and some of the people that have invited us on to, places like Feltwell that, no one would normally get access to, but, to be able to get on, Feltwell, or even down in Cornwall, Portreath, for example, radar station, been invited on there through another friend of mine. And that sort of access you don't get. It's just building those connections. And, I like to think what I do, it just brings people along. And, I get a lot of people sort of say, oh, have you seen this? If not, would you like to? And I think that's great. The goodwill and generosity of people, I think, is fantastic. And I'm always very careful, because being ex-military as well myself, I mean, you know what it's like. You've got to be so careful in what you're looking at, what you're photographing, and what's in the background. I think is the biggest thing with being on a military base. You can go on an organised tour. Yeah, I mean, Mildenhall and Lakenheath do tours, base tours. You go up, see air traffic, you see one of the aircraft. You might have a look at the dog section, you might have a look at the gun section, whichever it is. And you get some nice access that way. But when you're invited on by other people, you can certainly see sort of things. And those tours is one thing. So they're brilliant. They're pre-arranged. You see a lot of great stuff. But when you're invited on, you see things that other people don't necessarily get to see. And like I say, you've just got to be careful what you're looking at, because you don't know what's in the background. And if you're taking a picture of something, all of a sudden you're like, oh, that's in the background. Right, I need to edit that out, blur that out somehow, and that's that. Usual sort of thing, people, cars, that sort of thing you try and avoid. But yeah, it's nice being able to do that. And I think that's obviously the hardest bit is knowing what's okay to photograph, knowing what you can publish and that sort of thing. In terms of airfields and finding airfields, I guess some of the hardest ones, believe it or not, are probably the World War I flying fields, because they were so temporary in some cases, and records are very, very sketchy in terms of where they were. So you can look at places like Stowe Marys in Essex, which is one of the most complete World War I airfields left in the UK, and there's a lot of really, really good things that they've done there in terms of turning it into a museum, restoring the buildings, and that's a fantastic place. And again, recommend anyone go there. It's brilliant. But when you're looking at some of the smaller sort of landing sites that they had that were literally just tented accommodation, no hangars, trying to work out where they were is a lot harder. And you might have the use of Google Earth, and you might have a look at the Google Maps and stuff like that. But when you've only got a rough idea, rough grid square of where this airfield was, you're then literally looking at hedge lines, field lines, boundaries. And over 110 years ago, these have changed massively. And trying to pinpoint some of that is always going to end up as a rough area.
Yeah, we always when we flew generally over East Anglia, but our general training flights would take us all over the country. And for me, being such an enthusiast about especially World War II airfields, it was always really neat for me and interesting to look down from either my work aircraft, in the Air Force from the Osprey, or I flew that Super Cub out of RAF Bury St. Edmunds, and you can make out the outlines, and you always wonder, it's like, what, what. I wonder if that was an airfield, but they almost have a very unique shape that you can see from the air. Yeah. And 90% of the time you can go back on Google Earth, like you're saying, and realize, oh yeah, that was, Tibenham, or that was or that was Scunthorpe or something like that.
So, absolutely. Yeah. And they're quite distinctive. Once you know what you're looking for, you can pick the shapes out, the field lines, the boundaries, just the shape of the bit of taxiways or the bit of runways that are still there. You can spot them a mile off. And I'm fortunate that I'm involved with a little flying club called Priory Farm Aviators. Priory Farm's a small grass strip, 600 metres long, that is about a quarter mile west of Tibenham Airfield. It's a little north-south 0119 strip. I've been on the committee there about 15 years now. I've been involved, and thankfully, I'm non-flying member. I don't have a license, but I'm very thankful that one or two of the members take me up sort of semi-regularly. So hence you see some of my aerial photos like that, and it's fascinating when you go up. You literally see it. I mean, Google Earth's one thing for picking out the airfields, but seeing them yourself with a Mark 1 eyeball is certainly totally different to look at them from above. And then you realise when you look at one, all of a sudden the next one comes into view, and the next one comes into view, and you realise how close a lot of these places are, and how busy the skies would have been. We think we have busy skies now when you've got the F-15s and the F-35s out of Lakenheath, the 135s, the Ospreys, the 130s and stuff out of Mildenhall. You might get an F-35 up out of Marham. It depends on what they're doing. I think they've got a few based there, but you never see them fly very often. But you might get a few up out of there. Then you've got Norwich air traffic. You've got the airliners going in there. You've got the airliners into Stansted and Luton as well. and they all come across the top of the skies of East Anglia now. And if you can imagine, sort of 10, 20 years ago, probably, when you had places like Coltishall open, Honington with aircraft, and one or two of the other bases around here that had active aircraft, it was busy. We think it's busy now. It was busy then. But when you've got 50 airfields in Norfolk and 40 airfields in Suffolk active, in the Second World War, and each of them's got sort of 50, 60 B-17s, B-24s, or whatever on there. Trying to put the missions together and trying to get the the aircraft in the sky and flying. And it's just an amazing feat. Yeah. How did they do it? Something that I still can't fathom. I find it very difficult to sort of get in my head now that was even possible back then. And,
well, how did they find them? How did this is a genuine question because I don't know the answer. So you have 100 and 150 aircraft coming back across the channel. How did they find their station? Did they have identifiers, beacons? Was it written on the airfield somewhere, or was it just pure?
I think it was just navigation. They knew where the airfield was. I mean, you fly. But obviously, today's flying is so different to what it was back then. They didn't have the computers or you do now and all that sort of thing. You can't rely on Sky Demon and that type of stuff. Yeah. I think it was just navigation. But I think coming back, I mean, if you watch Masters of the Air, or if you're watching the series as it is now, you see that was it episode 2, episode 1 when they came back and he crash landed in Scotland because he literally just made it across the sea. Yeah, I think when they were coming back with the missions, the ones that could get back to the airfields did. The other ones just got down where they could. Yeah.
Probably figure out where am I?
Where they were.
Get some fuel and then try to get.
If the aircraft was, if the aircraft was flyable, they'd get back. But seeing the state of some of the aircraft that arrived back, I mean, some of them are massively beat up. Yeah. And just unreal. What these guys had to go through. I mean, they don't call them the greatest generation for nothing. Can you imagine the kids these days, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25-year-olds? You imagine 10 of them getting in an aircraft at that age, B-17 and flying it across. Unreal.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine it. I'm 47 nearly, and I can't imagine doing that.
So what of these airfields, which one would you say has, well, I guess Duxford would take the cake as far as museums, but I know when on the last show we were talking about Harrington. Harrington for me was really unique. The museum curators and the volunteers there did a really outstanding job because the 801st Bomb Group, the carpetbaggers that were there, that is direct lineage to Air Force Special Operations Command, and our leadership at Mildenhall in the Special Operations Wing was very cognizant of that, and we would go to Harrington to do our leadership offsites, and it was so special to me and our leaders, but it was special to them that the American Air Force was still coming over there, and we would take a whole day to go through the museum and sort of remember, and then we would get on with our business for the rest of the weekend. But which of these airfields, if you had to rank them, top 3 accessible airfields or museums that you would recommend to people, where would you send them?
Put me on the spot there on that one. As I alluded to earlier, every museum is special in its own way. I don't think I could, and I don't think it would be fair of me to rank a top 3 of them. I think every museum is fantastic in its own way. And anyone who has an interest in, be it the 8th, the 9th, RAF, Coastal Command, Flight Command, just aviation in general, every museum is fantastic on its own merits. And there are so many out there, and we've named quite a number already. But you could look at others like Bentley Priory, Uxbridge. You could go down on the south coast to places like Tangmere. There's the museum at Davidstow Moor in Cornwall. There's the Bristol Area Collection. There's so many good museums out there, and I don't think I could put one down as a favourite. I really
fair enough.
couldn't.
I'll let you off the hook then on that one.
Yeah.
What about the landowners? This is always something that I'm curious about. Aside from the ones, so for me, RAF Bury St. Edmunds slowly being taken over by housing, and the flying club that I was part of there had to shut down last March.
Such a shame. Yeah, that was such a shame that last year.
So what's your impression on the landowners in general? Do they appreciate what they have and the land that they're on? Is it a conservation effort? What's been your general interaction with the landowners?
Again, a very difficult one. When I go out and look at old airfields, if you demonstrate you've got a genuine reason, 99% of landowners are absolutely fine. It's the old thing. You know what they say, you go along with a clipboard and a high vis and you can get anywhere. It's that sort of thing. If I go to these places, I've got a site plan in my hands, showing what the airfield was, what was built there as the Air Ministry designed it for, in World War II. And I go along, and quite often you bump into a landowner. Make yourself as visible as possible. If you can't find who you're looking for, I always make myself as visible as possible. And if it's gated, it's clearly gated for a reason. And you stick to public rights of way is all I'll say. And when these things, when you start meeting people, and coming back to what we were saying earlier, you meet a lot of really fantastic people. Some of the landowners, they know what they've got. They understand that people are interested in it. And I think if you go along and the right approach, the right, you're friendly, you're cheerful, and you go along and you've got your site plan, you can demonstrate you're interested in it. You go along, you've got your T-shirt. I've got, it's a USAF Heritage Trust T-shirt on here. You can see the landowners are fairly engaging, and they're happy to chat, and they'll have stories about the land they're farming or the land that they own, and they'll tell you certain things. And why don't you come along here? You've got this, buried underground battlehead course here. That do you want to come and see that? We've got a couple of buildings around here. People can't normally get them because they're in the middle of the farm. Do you want to come and see those? And that 99% of the time they're absolutely fantastic. You occasionally get the odd job's worth, and in which case, you say, you just turn around and say, yeah, no, it's fine, not a problem. I'll, another time come, go back another time, you might get a different response. There might be someone else there. All I'd say is never push your luck when going out to visit these places. A lot of them are still quite dangerous. There's still you can go to a lot of communal sites, living sites, and they've still got open drains. If you've had a winter, the leaves have all fallen, you're not necessarily going to see the drain. You might fall into it, all that sort of thing. So as long as you approach things the right way, make sure you're only going where is publicly accessible. Being over here yourself, you get a lot of places, a lot of the countryside, you get shooting season. You don't want to go out exploring in the middle of the winter because you might have someone with a shotgun trying to get some of the pheasants or something like that. It's that sort of thing. Common sense is key when you're out exploring old airfields. I think in 20 years, I've probably only ever come across a couple of people that have been not allowed on my land type of thing. And that's fine. Just respect that and move on. Yeah. If you're that desperate to go and see what they've got there, get in a plane and fly across the top.
Yeah. Luckily, you have that opportunity, don't you?
Yeah, and I've also got a drone as well, which I use quite regularly for a lot of research, and that's a fantastic piece of equipment. It's a fantastic tool to have. Right? So different perspectives.
Do you have a battle plan, an ops plan to go tick off all those airfields that you haven't yet?
Yeah, I've got. I've built on my website. I've built a map of, I've called it flying sites in the UK, purely because I've included grass strips, World War I flying sites, helipads, all of that, and I've got over 2,300 flying sites marked on this map that I've built, and I'm looking at them, and I've coloured the ones that I've been to. I've got, I know the ones that I haven't been to. This is, just on the Second World War and First World War flying sites, and I'm determined to get there. I mean, this year, I've I've said to my wife, we've got a young daughter. She's 4.5, so it's been very difficult to get out a lot over the past few years when she's really young, as you know yourself with kids. And she's at a stage now that I can go away for a night, or I can go away for a couple of nights and that sort of thing, and it's a little bit easier because there's Gemma will find it a bit easier with that, so it makes that a bit nicer. And I'm planning, one of the trips I'm planning this year is down to Devon. I haven't been to, and I'm ashamed to say, I still haven't been to Dunkeswell, Pottery, and Culmhead. And you know yourself, Airborne, Band of Brothers, airfields that they flew from, and I haven't never been down there, although I've driven past so many times. So I've made it one of my key goals in the first 6 months of this year. Hopefully by June I'd have been down there. And I'm planning 2 or 3 days down there. There's a couple of other places in Dorset and Hampshire that I want to go and visit. I want to try and get a bit of time in Wales to look at some of those. There's a game plan. It changes depending on what mood I'm in and what the weather's like, really. But there is a game plan.
That's great. So, I know you've mentioned the website a couple of times. So for our listeners that aren't already following you, where can they find you? What's the website, your social media?
It's UK Airfields. So if you on Facebook or Instagram, I'm literally UK Airfields. The website is www.ukairfields.org.uk. Yeah.
Well, listen, as a fellow service member, I really appreciate what you do, because I've mentioned it on the show so many times. When I went to fly there at Rougham or even Cambridge or Duxford, it was never lost on me the people that had walked those same footsteps before me. And I still get chills just kind of thinking about, and I would always just kind of take a moment walking by that control tower, that 80-year-old control tower now, and just kind of sit there and take it in before going to fly. So again, as a fellow service member, I think it's important to, what's one of the things that you guys do best over there is to remember and to create this heritage. So thank you for keeping this memory alive.
I don't need any thanks. I just enjoy doing it, and it makes me happy that people enjoy what I do. You talk about the servicemen there in the past. You only have to go to places like Madingley, and you understand the impact that this area, East Anglia, the Midlands, where the Americans are based, you only have to, you go there, you understand why people do it. It's a phenomenal place. It brings a tear to my eye every time I go. Like I said, walking around these places, you said it just then, that they're powerful places. The emotion that you get, you stand there. I'm very lucky that Thorpe Abbots is literally a half an hour walk, 25-minute walk from my house. And on a summer's day, I am very, very regularly found down there, and I'm just stood on the top of the control tower looking out across the airfield. And, that brings me, on to say, these places, with Masters of the Air, these are going to be very busy places this year, and I recommend anyone go. Sadly, we're losing some of these places. This past year, we've lost the control tower at Shibden in Norfolk. That's sadly been demolished. Hethel was demolished a couple of years ago. Some of these places, as historically important as they are, there are still people that don't necessarily see, the value in there. Shibden, I should say that the company that own it, Falcon Cranes, they are planning to rebuild it. Or rebuild a faithful replica of the one that was knocked down there. That was due to subsidence and all that sort of thing, which affects buildings. Make sure you go out and see these places. That's all I say to people, that get an idea of what was there. A lot of people don't realise the history that's on their doorstep, and especially in Norfolk and Suffolk, where it impacted the people, the way of life. I mean, a lot of these villages, they didn't have electricity, they didn't have sewage works and places like that until the airfields arrived. Some of these villages are still using the same sewage works that was built for the airfield in the 40s, and that's that's what they're doing. It's that how the social impact as well, and that everyone in the villages that have got live near an airfield have got stories about the airfields as well. They've all got family that were there in the war. They all know all know people, and I'm like I say, I'm very lucky to be in touch with some of the veterans that are still alive, and the families of some of the veterans as well. It's just just love it. It's brilliant.
Yeah. Well, Rich, thank you for taking the time out of your evening to be with us. And if you get any good feedback from any of our listeners or somebody reaches out to you, let us know, and we'll do this again.
Definitely. No, I certainly will. Thanks, Armando.
Thank you. We'll talk to you later.
All right. Cheers.
Bye.
Thanks to Armando for that. So good. And thanks to Richard as well for taking time out of his day to record that, obviously, with Armando. Early this
but
week.
why wouldn't you, though? This is the thing, isn't it? It's like,
that's it, isn't it?
hello, I'm Armando. You might have heard me. I'm the coolest human being on planet Earth. Oh, I'm going to stand in my hangar. I'll probably show you round while we're here. That sort of thing. I mean, if you're an aviation lover, why on earth wouldn't you want to sort of chat to Armando?
But it's nice to hear Richard. Richard's there's one thing to say about Richard. He's dedicated to what he does, and that is good, because I think what we need in well, not so much our area, but all around the UK as well, is people to go and visit these museums and that are kind of scattered around the UK. And as I said before, we started that piece. Me and Matt are very lucky here where we live in East Anglia, on the east coast of the UK, because we have got a heck of a lot of really, really good museums based on old Second World War airfields. One's literally on our doorstep now. We could probably walk to it in 15, 20 minutes, Matt? Walk to it from our home?
Yeah, something like that.
It's just down the road. And, go a bit further, you've got Seething, where we had our flying a few years back. PTUK Flying also got a museum there. And as Richard said on the piece there, you've got the Thorpe Abbott's Bomb Group there, which have got their fantastic museum on the site there, including the control tower and the Nissen huts there on site with pieces in. So we are lucky, really, really lucky here, I think, here in the UK. And anyone who's visiting the UK from the US or further afield, we are in the back end of nowhere. I was going to say something else then. We are in the back end of nowhere here, but it is worth the visit to Norfolk and Suffolk, where we are here on the East Coast, if you are visiting the UK, because, as I said, a lot of these museums, not only are they really well placed and full of content, our local one here, which is huge, is free to get in. Doesn't cost you a penny, which is fantastic.
It's also quite nice for me personally, because Richard is actually a customer of the company I work for as well. So that's quite nice. And I was just so impressed about Richard's encyclopedic knowledge about the whole thing. I had no idea that his research was as extensive as it has been. So we're just going to give him a shout out for his websites again, and that's www.ukairfields.org.uk, and you can find him on Facebook at UK Airfields, and I think he mentioned Instagram as well, so just do a search for UK Airfields. No, really, really fascinating, Richard. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time to tell us all about it. I'm sure you get a lot of good feedback.
Yeah, I think as well, Rich is going to pop in for a brew around with me.
I was going to say he's very close to where you work, isn't he? Yes.
Right, it's time for Capturing This, just for fun. The picture we post on our social medias, hopefully nearly every week. We try and get them out every week. This week, we posted a picture on our page, and it's safe to say whoever flew this aircraft, Nev, I think they either, I think they had a slight issue.
Yes, there's some bent props there. I think it's the best way I can describe it. But quite artistic in many respects as well, I would say. But we were not short of people who had written in with their suggestions and comments about it.
No, first off, we had from, well-known aviation person in the industry, Rob Mark, messaged in, said, but curved propellers blades just look way more interesting. I suppose they do. They do, to be fair.
Jacob Darlington Brown says they're just winglets for propellers. I like that one. I like that, yeah.
Matt?
Can't see anything here, I'm afraid.
Okay. I think Nick's on silent. He's still got audio issues. Matthew says it will buff out. That's always an original. Always works.
And our friend Neil Braden says, trust me, it worked well in wind tunnel testing.
Yeah, I bet. The lovely Jenny over in Rome says, I had my propellers permed and blow-dried.
Ah, I like that one, yes. Stephen Ivey says, the new art display at Duxford.
We'll have to keep our eyes open for that one.
Yeah, definitely.
Nick C, someone who's got audio issues, says Pringles make a surprise entry into the aviation market.
Chris Gurney says, a bit late on the round out, Hoskins. Or simply, oh bugger.
Right, okay, I mean, that's...
I think we're allowed to say
There
that.
goes the family rating, yeah.
Darren says, this is one for you, Nev. I hate the film speed on my mobile. Makes the props look bent.
Oh, yes. I like that, yes. Ian Edwards, good chum of mine, screwed, he says. And looks like that's exactly what's happened, doesn't it?
Chris comes back with another one. He says, who raised the runway?
John Falk says, the new 3D printed propeller blades failed at the coffee frothing test. My word, there's some sophistication to a lot of these comments, isn't there?
James, trying to keep the family rating here. James says, props feathered? No, they're not working properly.
Okay.
And you know what I was going to say there. So, yes, thank you for everyone. We're going to have a look in the chat room to see if anyone's had a little comment in there. Dirk says, as a German, I don't want to comment on this shape. Okay.
Oh, yes, okay, yeah, moving on, yeah.
Moving on.
Oh, my.
Richard Adams says, Captain to FO. That's not quite what I meant when I said feather the prop.
Right.
Aaron P says, trust me, it's more aerodynamic. I suppose, yeah, it could be.
Aerodynamic? No.
Mayman Micah goes with how I like to wear my hair when I have it styled. Says, you can't notice this comb over, can you? Captain Ridiculous Wits, the turbo that seems to be missing its casing.
Right, yes.
Richard Adams.
Issue there, yes.
There's fan stop. Fan stop!
Yes. Or my favourite at the moment, Dirk S., the perpendicular propeller.
Say that after two
No, not possible.
I have to say, Nev, I think this aircraft, I mean, this is an actual picture. I mean, can you imagine the vibration from the engine with this prop running?
Yes, I think you would notice it, wouldn't you? Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, it certainly wouldn't fly. I think that's a guarantee.
No. I think that might be an issue. And I think, judging by the direction of those propellers, I think that has actually been feathered.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, thanks for everyone for commenting this week. Very, very good indeed. We'll try and get one out next week as well on our social media for you to comment on, as we do. Look forward to that. Now, what's going on next week? We've got a little bit of listener feedback coming up in a moment. But, Nev, just quickly, what's going on next week? This time next week, we'll all be packing our PTUK suitcases.
We will be. And, yes, I'm very much looking forward to this. So we have myself, Matt, Carlos, and Matt from the A320 podcast. We're going to be flying over to Dublin for the Drone Summit and Mobility Now conference. That's at the RDS in Dublin on March the 1st and 2nd. And we shall be there covering the show, doing lots of interviews with people. And then in the evening of Saturday the 2nd of Saturday the 2nd of March, we shall be at the Clayton Hotel in Ballsbridge in Dublin, and we're going to be there with some PTUK listeners, hopefully. So if you would like to come along and you're in the area, please give us a shout. It's podcast@planetalkinguk.com, just so we can get an idea of numbers. We'll be in the hotel bar, I would imagine. And I don't know if Matt's got a picture of the hotel there.
Well, it's very nice.
It's quite nice, I have to say, this one. And it's right next to the RDS site itself. A former school, our producer John tells me as well, as you can probably see. So, yeah, absolutely fascinating. Podcast at planetalkinguk.com if you would like to come along on the Saturday evening. And then we should be flying back on the Sunday. But actually on the Thursday that we're flying out there, our good friend Alan White is assisting us with some transport and logistics, but also going to a secret location where we'll be doing some filming and interviews as well. So I'm looking forward to doing that on Thursday afternoon.
So secret, even I don't know what we're doing. That
well, there you
like
go.
Fun.
See, it's on a need-to-know basis.
Clearly, I don't need to know. That's marvellous. You can leave me in the bar, Nev. I'll look after things there.
No,
It's fine.
Mount the bar go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to that next week. Obviously, it'd be great to see you if you are listening to the show and you are in the area of Dublin near the RDS Arena. It'd be great to meet some of you guys and girls out there. Now, Nev, we had some listener feedback sent in to us, haven't we, from a listener, and this is actually quite interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. And thank you very much to our listener, Gavin, from New Zealand. So Gav actually originally hails from the UK and used to live a stone's throw from London Gatwick Airport. In fact, he's the admin of the Memories of Gatwick Airport Facebook group, which has over 8,000 members now. So have a look for that on Facebook, Memories of Gatwick Airport. So Gav now lives in Wellington in New Zealand, and he says he watches every week on YouTube. So first of all, thank you very much indeed, Gav, for doing that. And we really appreciate you listening. But we're also grateful for you getting in touch and contributing to the show. Gav wants to tell us about the Bring Our Birds Home organisation. First of all, the website is bringourbirdshome.co.nz. Upon opening the website yourself, you'll see a very striking image of a very sad-looking Boeing 707, I think it is, on the
DC-8.
Is it a DC-8? Is it? Oh, it is. Yes, it is a DC-8. Beg your pardon. I've just noticed that. But this is quite interesting. The mission statement says, in 2017, broadcaster and aviation enthusiast Paul Brennan launched the campaign seeking to save, secure and eventually recover all of the last remaining members of the Teal, NAC, Air New Zealand and Mount Cook Airlines airliner fleets delivered between 1959 and 1988. The idea started to check to see if any of the 6 aircraft types remain intact, with 4 of them abandoned and derelict at locations around the world. It's the eventual plan to display these artefacts at the Transport and Toy Museum in Wanaka. The airframes include the airline type that brought the Beatles to New Zealand, a freighter that was once fit to carry the Queen, the aircraft that flew New Zealand's commercial jet service, and the Lord of the Rings, beg your pardon, 747. Well, thank you very much indeed for getting in touch, Gav. So we really appreciate your time for doing that. And if anybody else has got any interesting stories, please send them to us at podcast@planetalkinguk.com. So the website again is bringourbirdshome.co.nz if you'd like to find out more. And thank you again to Gav for getting in touch.
Yeah, the DC-8 looks very much like the 707 though, doesn't it?
It does, doesn't it?
Very,
Yes.
very
Yeah.
similar. Very similar indeed. But yeah, thanks for sending that in. Very interesting indeed. And that's a mammoth task.
Gosh,
getting all those aircraft back.
Yeah, a big project, isn't it? Yeah, but I hope they're successful in finding as many as they can.
Yeah, we need to save more of these old historic airliners.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's some space at Duxford. If you're listening, Duxford, you've got space there. Perhaps we should.
Yes,
But yes, that is where we're going to start to wrap up the show. But first, Nev, social media links. Where can all our glorious listeners find out more about the show?
Oh, yes. Have a look on the socials on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Just search for Plane Talking UK. You'll find us there. The WhatsApp number for the show is +44 757 224 9166. That's +44 757 224 9166. As I mentioned earlier, the email address is podcast@planetalkinguk.com if you'd like to send send any comments into us. And the website, of course, is planetalkinguk.com. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel too. You'll get notifications when we go live, and you can help shape the conversation of the show by joining us in the chat room, as many people have done today. Just have a look at youtube.com and search for Plane Talking UK. You can become a patron of the show, of course, and help contribute to the running of the show by Patreon and also by PayPal. The details of that are on our website, planetalkinguk.com.
And we'd love to hear from you, so do send in your feedback. Now, Nev, quick round robin. What's Mr. Bounds up to next week?
Oh, a lot next week. I'm on the plane again, I'm pleased to say. So I'm flying up to Edinburgh on Monday morning, early, doing some appointments there. And then I'm getting the train up to Aberdeen, changing at Dundee on the way up there. It's a beautiful train journey all the way up the coast there. And if the weather's nice, it's perfect. So I'm then coming back to Edinburgh for some appointments on Tuesday, and flying back home on Tuesday late afternoon. And then, of course, flying to Dublin on Thursday with Matt C. from the A320 podcast. We'll be together on one plane. And you and Matt will be on another plane, won't you?
We certainly will. I'm guessing that you and Mr. Matt C. will be making full use of BA's lounge at T5.
I'll see if I can guest him in. I'll see if they'll let him in, shall I? Yeah.
I'm sure they will.
I mean...
And Matt, what's going on next week with you? Apart from coming to see me for dinner, obviously.
I mean, coming to see you for dinner, and then just it's unfortunately the diary is pretty empty at the moment because of the early morning commitment at the moment. While one of our wonderful DJs is having what I can only describe as a full service and MOT before being returned, hopefully joining us again soon. So I'm sitting in what I can only describe as the scariest seat in radio, certainly in this part of the world. Anyway, but,
breakfast show, you know. That is
absolutely, indeed, scary stuff.
Nick, I would ask you what you're doing next week, but as your microphone doesn't work, that's going to be an issue. So Nick will be doing lots of cycling next week on his motorbike in the summer weather or sunny weather, and I'm sure he'll be putting together some fabulous show notes for next week's show. And we might also have another guest host joining us next week as well on the show. So that's where we're going to bring the show to an end. Big thanks to all the YouTube family who've joined in on the show tonight in the chat room. All the usual family members in there. Great to see you all joining us on this Wednesday evening. Don't forget, we are live on a Wednesday night at 7 o'clock here on YouTube. If you fancy joining us here, you can join in the chat room fun, because it is a big old laugh. So that's it for episode 491 of the show. Thanks to Nick for his help with the show notes this week. Thanks to our producer, John, as well. He's probably up in the air, flying somewhere around the world at the moment.
Oh, very much so. Flying home as we speak.
Flying home. Yeah. And that's it. Take care. Have a great week, rest of the week, and great weekend, whatever you're up to. And we'll see you all next Wednesday. Say goodbye, Nev.
Yeah, take care. See you next week.